nothing's going to knock me down. Nothing is going to ruin my day. It cannot, and I won't allow it. And that's because I have consistently applied this mindset of everything is figure outable and everything is overcomable, right? Like I will get through everything because I know how hard things feel and they're not that bad, right? It's not that bad. This too shall pass. That's the mindset I always have. And not only that is this too, which could be something very bad, I'm analyzing it to find the positive in it. Welcome to Burning the Ships, and I'm your host, Jason Seward, and today I am flying solo again. And the reason I am solo today is we've had a lot of, and it's, things that have come up on my end and things that have come up on my guest end, but we've had a lot of interviews had to be kind of shuffled around here at the end of the year with, everybody's just busy, right? And a lot of my guests are entrepreneurs and they are trying to wrap up their year and things like that. So just like last year, it's very difficult to lock anybody up for an hour for something like this. So we've had to reschedule a couple interviews that I've had scheduled this week and last week and push them out to the first of the year. But that's not a bad thing because it gives me a chance to, this will actually be the last episode of 2025. So it'll come out the Sunday after Christmas. As you're hearing this, it's the Sunday after Christmas or whenever you're listening. But, and it's our last episode of 2025. And it'll wrap up really 2 full years of doing this podcast. I just realized, so I don't, before I get any further, let me toss it over to a segment I was about to forget right at the beginning, but JJ's joke of the week. So I'll toss it over to JJ for his joke of the week. Take it away, buddy.
What do you call fake spaghetti? An imposter.
All right, that is JJ's joke of the week. And as you're hearing this, we just finished up with Christmas and all that. So as I'm recording it, that hadn't happened yet. But as y'all are hearing this, we're right in the middle of Christmas break mode, having a good time and all that good stuff. So one thing that, I have really been very intentional about with this podcast is not getting consumed with like the numbers and metrics that go along with podcasts. And there's a reason I've had to have focused intention not to do that. And that's because I'm a competitive person. Like by nature, I'm super competitive with everything I do. So numbers matter to me, right? And like rankings matter to me. Those things I will obsess over them if I allow myself to do it. And where that applies to something like a podcast is every episode. I mean, we're publishing these every week on multiple platforms. Our two biggest, probably 90% of our listens or views or whatever you call it come from Apple and Spotify. Mostly Apple, but Apple and Spotify tend to be the largest. And then we're on all the platforms. I don't know what they all are, but there's you can listen to podcasts on Google and there's other platforms and those do decent as well. But Apple and Spotify dominate. Our YouTube, the video version of it, we don't get much on there because there's not really, these interviews are not, there's nothing to watch. It's just two people there talking. So most people consume podcasts on the audio versions, Apple and Spotify. So where I'm going with all that is all of those things give feedback to us or on number of downloads, and it can dial it down to like the city that I can look at a map and see kind of a color code of what cities across the world really are listening to the podcast. We've been doing this 2 years, and I've been doing it for 2 years. I've had just realized recently, because I don't look at the episode numbers, like when we publish them, you don't see like it's episode 1 or episode 50 or whatever. But as I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, okay, and I knew we started it in December of 2023, and it was December of 25. I was like, we've been doing this 2 years. And I don't remember, I could look back, but I don't remember the exact date of the first episode, but it was early December. I do know that. And so we had hit 2 years. So I scrolled down at the bottom of our like just main podcast page on Apple, and it showed that it was episode 200. And that was the episode that Bill and I just did a couple weeks ago now. And which was fitting because it was pretty cool to have Bill as the guest for episode 200. That wasn't planned. I didn't even know it at the time of recording that. And I'll tie all this together to my point here in a minute. For those that haven't followed along, if this is your first episode listening to me, I have a very extreme rambling mentality. So my brain works in pop-ups. I go all over the place. It takes me a while to make a point sometimes. But the point is, I didn't know it was episode 200. That's cool. And that's going to kind of be the topic of this episode as I get a little bit further. But over those 2 years and those 200 episodes, I literally have only looked at the number of downloads and views and all that stuff. Because we have it's a website or a service that manages all of our, like, publishing it on all the platforms. So I don't even know how to log into it. I can't access it. Our podcast producer handles it, puts it in there. Off the top of my head, I can't even think of what the website, what the service is. But anyway, they upload everything in there and then it goes to all the platforms from there. But that service shows all the download numbers. I've been in there maybe twice in 2 years early on just to kind of look at how it reported everything, probably in the first few months. And then maybe 6 months to a year in, I looked at it. But the reason I don't look at it is because it goes back to the commitment that I made when I started it. I do not care. I genuinely do not care how many downloads it's getting or anything like that. We did have one episode. If you guys haven't heard this episode, you need to go back and hear it because it's a powerful story. But it was Wendy Lynn from the Richmond, Virginia market. And she came on and told her just powerful story. And for whatever reason, that episode hit the algorithms and did really well. It got a lot of views on YouTube and thousands of downloads so far with on all the different platforms. So that was kind of an outlier that, for whatever reason, it was a great story, but it hit the algorithms and did really well. So I saw that, but the reason I don't allow myself to go in and look at these numbers is because a couple things could happen. If the numbers are low, it could drive me to try to do things that are not natural, right? That are not authentic to me. Like, try to do things differently that aren't who I am. I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to be who I am, and this podcast is going to be who I am. It might turn some people off and others may love it. I'm fine with both of that. I understand that. But it's going to be done the way I am. The way I talk, I say a lot. I probably don't use correct grammar most of the time. I ramble a lot. I get guests in here. They talk about, we might be starting on one topic. We might end on something completely different, but that's authentically who I am and how I do it. So if I'm seeing a scoreboard and if the numbers are down, then it's probably going to influence me. I don't want any influence on how I do things. So it could influence me to, I need to speak differently or get different types of guests in here. No, I want to get the people in here that I am intrigued by, right? I did go through a period early on where I was trying to get folks that had, I was reaching out to people proactively on social media that I don't know anything about, but I was reaching out to them because I saw a few cool reels and they had 1 million followers, right? And that got some pretty cool guests on here. But it also got a few duds, right? A few folks, as I was 10 minutes, first time I'm meeting them is when they log in and we record. And I'd get 10 minutes into an interview and I'm like, man, this is not, and a couple of those we didn't publish. I'm not going to share, who or anything like that, but a couple big influential people that just got on here and it was a bust of an interview. And maybe that was because of the way I was phrasing questions or whatever the case may be, but it just was not good. So that I was chasing those people who had, seemed to be influential in the social media space, trying to go after and get attention from their following, right? And I was only doing that to try to increase our numbers. And so I kind of went down that path a little bit early on, but I had to get back on track with what I committed to doing. And that was just putting out something that's authentic to me and letting it all work out from there. And I will say, I am aware that this podcast has grown. And I couldn't tell you any averages or anything like that. There have been opportunities for us to potentially bring on sponsors. And I haven't wanted to do that either. And mainly because it's not a lot of revenue that it would generate, and this podcast doesn't cost a lot to produce. So far I've just decided the only sponsor is going to be the company I own, right? Which is 608B Capital. Other than that, like I don't want, and these are local, real estate related type sponsors, but, and I may do that at some point, but I'm not just going to take on a sponsor, take a check from them to do an ad read, and then possibly have them, want to dictate in some way how I do the podcast or the guest I have on. So I don't think that would be a problem, but just right now that's not what I'm doing. I just want to get on here and talk to cool people and put it out there. So that's enough of that rambling, but the topic that I'm leading into today is consistency. And I think as I wrap up this year, and this again is the last episode of the year, I wanted to talk a little bit about my opinions and my perspectives around consistency and how powerful it is and how underutilized or appreciated consistency is as a talent, right? So I made a post on social media recently about, just in my perspective, consistency is probably the number one skill a human being can have. And what I meant by that is, right, there's other skills like resilience is a trait, right? You can, or the ability to sell, like a sales skill, the ability to network, that's a skill. The ability to close deals, that's a skill. There's all kinds of skills that relate to business and entrepreneurship. The ability to analyze numbers very well and quickly do math and underwrite things and businesses and ideas and stuff like that, that's a skill. Being a visionary, having visions and being able to get people motivated and behind your visions, that's a skill. But all of those pale in comparison to consistency, right? So if you're a good closer of sales, if you're not consistently doing that, you're not going to be a good closer. You might have the skill of being a good closer, but you don't have the consistency to make that a productive skill that you have. So one thing, I am not very skilled at many things, or very few things am I skilled at, right? I am a decent salesperson. I am a decent networker. I am very poor when it comes to organization, right? I am a messy person. I've been that way since I was a child. Things pile up. You go in my vehicle at any given time, it's one extreme or the other. It's super clean because I've spent a day detailing it, or it's piled up with my stuff throughout the week that I just hadn't taken out of the vehicle. That's how I live. It's messy, and I get that. So I'm not skilled when it comes to like being organized and things like that. I am not skilled with analytics when it comes to numbers. I see big picture. I can see big numbers, But when it comes to dialing in and like really getting detailed and in the weeds with numbers, my brain just can't go there. It's not a focus that I have or a talent that I have. But what I am skilled at, the biggest skill, the best skill that I've had in my life is consistency. And I have been able to, it starts for me when I get obsessed with something, right? I have an obsessive personality. Not OCD. I'm not OCD at all, but I am obsessive with going down rabbit holes and pursuing things that I'm passionate about or that I have a lot of interest in. And that's a lot of things. So that obsession, once I get on something, it's game on. I'm going to consistently learn about it, take action on it, and do the things that, are required until I lose interest in it, right? And if it's something, if I get off of something, like if I'm no longer consistently doing it, it's not because I'm inconsistent. It's because I've lost interest in it. It doesn't serve me anymore. It doesn't serve those around me anymore. So I just kind of get off of it. And I thought I'd share a couple examples today of how this skill of consistency has impacted my life and how I believe it can impact any human being on this planet if they apply it and sharpen this tool of consistency. So in my life, a couple things that I've always been consistent with, right? And these are more traits, but one of them is positivity, right? And I'm very aware of this. I know it. I hear it from folks that also know it about me. But I am annoyingly positive, right? I am always trying to find something positive in every situation. I cannot, and I don't apologize for that, right? Even bad situations, my brain is always going to how can we find a silver lining here, right? That's annoying to a lot of people because some people like to sit in problems for a while, right? And I get that. I'm not that way, but some people do. Most people like that. Like if there's a problem, they need time to sit in that problem. They need to be negative about it. They need to share that negativity. They need to vent. And all those things are fine. My brain is not wired that way, right? And I've worked at that. Like that's not something I don't think I was naturally born that way. Because I've had a lot of crap in my life to be negative about, but I think it was modeled to me to just always push forward and be positive by my mother. Like that's how I was raised. We went through a lot of adversity. I've talked about it on previous podcasts, but went through a lot of adversity, especially through my childhood into my teenage years. And, I learned through watching my mom that, yeah, these are tough times, but we're going to choose positivity. We're going to choose to find the good stuff in life and the good things in situations and just lean in on those and be excited and happy about those. So as I've become an adult, having that framework laid out in front of me as a child, I approach everything like that, right? And where I probably, it's not always a great thing because in my previous career, especially, with the insurance company, especially as I got to leading folks, right? As I had teams under me. Not most people are not wired this way, right? If there is a problem, if they face some adversity, the last thing they want to hear is me coming in and saying, all right, let's figure this out. Let's find something good in it. Okay, here, we can take it this way. We can leverage this. We can do that. And I'm always focused, just blinders on, focused forward. Some people don't respond. Most people don't respond to that very well. It's annoying, right? And so it's just who I am. And what it has done for me is there's nothing. Some really bad things could happen any given day, right? I mean, you talk about the worst stuff, losing loved ones and stuff like that can happen. Yes, those things obviously would knock me down, and I'm going to sit in that for a little while. So outside of those extremes, I'm just talking about daily hardships that might come up. You might lose a deal. You might have a deal go upside down where you lose money on it. You might have eat something bad for lunch that makes your stomach hurt the rest of the day. Your vehicle, you might have a flat tire. You might just daily adversity, right? Or in business, personal or business, nothing's going to knock me down. Nothing is going to ruin my day. It cannot. And I won't allow it. And that's because I have consistently applied this mindset of everything is figure outable and everything is overcomable, right? Like I will get through everything because I know how hard things feel and they're not that bad, right? It's not that bad. This too shall pass. That's the mindset I always have. And not only that is this too, which could be something very bad, I'm analyzing it to find the positive in it. I'll give an example. I'm not going to get very detailed on this example because it's actively going on, and it's kind of related to our business. But we have a situation right now with one of our loans that didn't go too well. Went really bad, actually. It's about we talk to our investors about like nightmare scenarios with deals and stuff like this, and we tell them how we mitigate those risks. Well, we're living that right now through one deal, right? It's just one deal. It's not literally, there's not even a bump in the road. But initially, when it was happening, I remember Bill kind of texted me. He said, "Hey, you got a minute?" And anytime he texts me like that, I know it's coming with some bad news behind it. And in my twisted positive mind, this is where I go. And I talked about this when Bill was on the podcast earlier. But my mind goes to, Bill's got something negative to tell me. Let's go. I bring it on. And I get, in a weird way, just how I've trained myself through consistently being this way, I get excited. Not excited because something bad has happened, but excited because I know that it's going to allow me an opportunity to figure something out, right? So he hits me with the details of it, and immediately I'm like, all right. It's kind of like, I know a lot of you have probably seen the Jocko Willink video, Good, where he's talking about one of the leaders he had in the military, that every time he'd come to him with a problem, that leader would say, good. And the point was, good. Now we have an opportunity to do X, Y, Z. So Bill comes to me with it. He knows what my response is going to be. It's not going to be, oh my God, this is terrible. How are we going to get through this? It was, all right, let's talk through it. Give me a day to think about some options and some scenarios. And that's what I do. I just think and I visualize what options we have. And then we'll reconvene and come up with the way to do it. And now I've got a puzzle to solve, and I love it. And part of my, what is a strength of mine is you give me that puzzle, I'm going to like positively approach how I solve it, right? So I'm looking, okay, we could do this. No, that might not work. We could do this. That's not a bad idea. We could do this. Man, that could be a really good idea. That could actually flip this thing upside down and make it a positive rather than a negative. So let's pursue that. So then I get back with Bill. Bill's the integrator. He's the implementer. He's going to take whatever ideas I come up with. We're going to talk through them. He's going to beat the bad ones down. He's going to say, okay, that's a good one. We'll lock in on one, and then we'll pursue it. And he'll implement everything. And the reason that is such a important skill to life, business, anything, is because of me consistently being that way and making myself, now it's just second nature. I don't have to think through it. I don't have to think, oh God, I'm negative, let me be positive. It's just there. I'm going to be positive about it. So now it's a habit because I've applied consistency. And now I have the ability to pretty much any adversity that comes up, because of my consistency of being positive, I'm going to approach it this way, positively, and immediately trying to seek a positive outcome or figure out how we can put a positive spin on this. Other areas that consistency applies, especially for me, and like I have to lead into things knowing that I'm going to be consistent with it. This podcast is a great example. Only thing I knew when I started this podcast was that I saw a stat, and I shared this somewhere recently, but I saw a stat that said less than 1% of podcasts, no, I'm sorry, less than 1% make it to 100 episodes, and it's like less than a quarter of a percent. So less than 1 out of 100 that podcast starts, make it to 100 episodes. Less than 1 out of, I think it's 400 that start, make it to 200 episodes, right? So I saw that stat and immediately I said, okay, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a scoreboard competitive person. I'm not going to focus on how many downloads and stuff like that. I'm going to focus on being better than 400 other podcasts that are starting today from a consistency standpoint. So I'm going to make it to 200 episodes. Well, what did I just mention earlier? We just crossed over 200 episodes. I didn't do anything special. Go back and listen to all my episodes. Some of them are goofy. Some of them don't make sense. I'm rambling, but I was consistently showing up every day or every week. And now there's a library of a ton of my thoughts, my ideas, my guests sharing their ideas, and there's some gold in there, right? There's some things that have helped people along the way only because I committed to being consistent. Another area that I've committed to consistency in, which I do in most areas of my life, but exercise and fitness, right? I lived most of my 30s just being a slob, right? No consistent routine around exercise or anything. I was just, I mean, to put it in perspective, I never saw it on the scale, but I was definitely over 200 pounds at one point, probably mid 30s. For me, I'm 5'9", 200 pounds, and it wasn't 200 pounds of muscle. It was 200 pounds of straight dad bod, right? Just flab. I didn't lift weights for 15 years of my life. Didn't do anything active other than, walking around the woods, hunting, and playing some golf every now and then. So once I flipped the switch, and there was a lot that kind of went into that, and I've talked about that, on previous podcasts, but once I flipped the script, I committed and I became obsessed. And I knew I needed to build accountability and consistency around it. And all the way back to September 1st of 2021, so we're over 4 years into this now, we committed to working out every day, me and Bill Phillips. And now we have Tim Blodgett. He joined about halfway through. And recently my brother has joined the everyday workout crew. So we got 4 of us going now. But me and Bill go back to September 1st of 2021. And we have committed to working out every single day. Now, does that mean we're doing a gruesome, hardcore workout every day? No, most days we are. But some days it might be a 3-mile walk. Some days it might be golf, right? Golf counts. I played golf this week. A full 18-hole round of golf. That's a pretty good workout. Burning some calories, that counts as a workout. But every day we've got something in that works our body out for over 4 years now. That's consistency. And what happens on the back end of that? I'm healthy, right? I'm as healthy as I've ever been. I feel great. I feel fantastic. I'm 44 years old and feel like I'm 25. I really legitimately feel that way because of consistency. I have more energy. That consistency shows to the world. They know that I'm a consistent person in that aspect, probably consistent in other aspects. I do what I'm going to say. I say I'm going to work out every day. I do. Bill does the same thing. Consistency. Consistency compounds and breeds more good stuff in my life. And I, again, truly believe that is the number one skill that I have. Consistency has an ability to mask all other bad things in my life, right? All the things that I'm not that great at, I show up and do these things every day, every week, every month, over and over and over and over and over and over, until things just start happening, right? I get very lucky because of consistency. I mentioned that recently. And what I mean by that is the more you do something over and over, the more people recognize it and the more opportunities kind of come your way to capitalize on. And it's just because I consistently show up. I am consistently nice to people. I'm kind to people. I'm not rude. I'm not mean to anybody. I haven't always been that way. I was kind of a jerk, when I was a kid and in high school, but I've evolved to consistently be a positive, nice, kind human being. That's not hard to do. I just commit to doing that to everybody in every situation. I consistently show up and do the things in my business that I have to do, and I have for 3 years now in our business. We've gotten lucky because of that consistency. Bill's done the same thing. Tim has done the same thing. Brandon will do the same thing. Consistently showing up and doing what we have to do to move the needle forward. And a lot of people drop off and don't stay on the path that they know will work out, right? If you do anything consistently day after day, you're going to be, I've seen this stat somewhere. If you do something, anything, 10,000 times, just say a lot of times, over and over and over, you're going to be better than 99% of the people that have ever tried to do that, right? So if you picked up a guitar right now and just started playing, you don't know what you're doing, go get a lesson or whatever, but you commit to playing that guitar over and over and over 10,000 days in a row, you're going to be better than 99.9% of people on this planet at playing guitar, right? And this could apply to anything, but I think this is a good wrap-up point and I can go on longer, but I don't want to ramble too much because I think y'all get the point. But consistency, think about it. Think about how you can apply it to your life and your situation, and I know you will get better results and more luck in life if you understand how consistency continues to show up and compound, and things show up for you when you consistently show up for whatever you're trying to do. So I'll leave it at that. I thank you for joining us on another episode of Burning the Ships. We'll see y'all next year, 2026. Here we come. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Burning the Ships podcast. As always, want to thank our sponsor, 608B Capital. We are a short-term lending fund, a debt fund, open for investors who are looking for a passive return. And also we offer products our main product to fix and flippers and buy and holders, folks that are doing things like that in real estate. Also want to remind you about our referral program. Check out our website for more information on that, and we're happy to talk to you further if you're interested. Again, thank you for joining us on Burning the Ships. And do me a favor and go out and try to find someone or some way that you can add value into the world today. Think through it, zoom out, and try to find where you can add value. I think it'll help wrap up your day, wrap up your week, whatever you're working on a positive note if you constantly think that way. Where can I add value? So with that, we thank you for joining us on another episode of Burning the Ships. Have a good one.